Greetings, I'm Barrett and welcome to Meet Me at the Table. Today we're going to be continuing our playthrough of the Dream Keepers campaign in Kingdom Death Gambler's Chest expansion. But before we do that, we got to set everything up, so this is going to be a longer settlement video than normal, but I want to make sure we go through all the steps that have to do with getting our settlement ready for action, and then we're going to go through the entire settlement step. We're going to go through our hunt event, and then in the next video we will be hunting our next monster. So I'm super excited to continue this extravaganza. This is going to be the most epic campaign I've played in a long time. The last time we did Kingdom Death was 3 years ago, and we're going to play this and not stop. This is going to be super fun. So if you're excited to get our campaign up and running for the settlement phase, then I need you to meet me at the table. Before we set up our campaign, there are a couple things I want to go over from the fight with our Prelude Crocodile. First off, I do want to apologize. I had to knock a little bit of rust off my Kingdom Death experience, and I did do a few errors. One of them is when she lost 1 speed, I took it away from her movement. Remember, movement is movement. Speed is the amount of times you can attack with a weapon, so it's actually -1 speed, so I had to change that on her sheet. Also, when I did this, I actually completely botched the very first hit location that we took advantage of. This is an impervious location. Even if you critical it, it does not do any wounds from what I understand, but I still get to take advantage of everything that was on here. Now, of course, the other thing I did is I took the sparkling upper back, and I was supposed to put that onto the hit location deck, and instead I put it back on top of the other deck. So you're not supposed to do this. Like I said, I totally botched that whole card up. The second one is when I did fail on this basically the crocodile does like a roll type of deal. That's kind of how it goes. You're going to take your crocodile, and in the game, I only moved it 3 spaces and called it a day. You're supposed to take it, count 3 spaces, then count another and put it right there. It's kind of like it's doing this whole like roll thing, which is kind of awesome because it simulates that in the game. I think that's absolutely fantastic. So I did also play that wrong, and I want you to be aware of that. Hopefully these 2 cards will come up again in our next playthrough when we actually take on the crocodile again, so I can redeem myself on how badly I botched those cards. We left off our campaign by gaining all our resources, and now we're going to be going to the settlement phase. The first thing it tells us to do is use the first Crimson Day. Now, the interesting thing is you could play this even with the core game, and there's actually a story event in the Gambler's Chest that allows you to fight the crocodile as your first monster instead of the white lion if you wish to, and use that. So it's different ways of adding different monsters in, which is pretty sweet. I'm excited about that. So here is our first Crimson Day. We're carrying back, of course, the carcass of our our crocodile, as usual. Full Kingdom Death extravaganza here. I do want to mention that if you haven't watched any Kingdom Death video before, they are for adults. These are not this is not a kid-friendly game when it comes to the graphic art and some of the words that go along with this game. We're going to do both steps that are on this card. The first one says the survivors trust their kill. Putting their backs into the bloodbath, they set off grimly, dragging the squelching hulk into the darkness. Drawn by a soft glow, they approach a distant form. A deep instinctual level, they know this place is safe, and they make it their home. So at this point, we are going to roll a d10, and we're going to determine our population size. Hopefully I can hit the book right here. Nope, I missed. Let's try again. There we go. I've got a 2. We're going to have 7 unnamed survivors, and we're going to have our returning survivors join us as well. Then we're going to go down here where it says the first Crimson Day settlement event will not be used again during this campaign, so do not include it in your settlement event deck. Speaking of settlement events, you're going to use all the settlement events from the core game, but you're going to remove any of them that have to do with some of the monsters you're not using. For example, anything that had to do with Spediculus or the Lion God or anything like that, that would not be in this deck. It's just going to be the core specific ones. They're not going to have any of those little flags up here. On top of that, you're going to add the ones from this particular thing. And for this particular campaign, we are going to remove the murder one from the original scenario, and we're going to add one from this particular scenario as depicted here. Also, we're going to add Skull Eater. Those are the two new settlement events we're going to add to this deck. We're going to give this a good old truffle shuffle here. And then, of course, we'll be drawing one of these out as we move through our settlement phase. So if you look at our settlement board, we're going to move into the board and do what it says as we continue through here. First thing is we're going to set up the settlement. Then our survivors are going to return. And then we're going to gain endeavors, which is going to be our 4 endeavors. We get 1 for each returning survivor. And at that point, after that, we're going to update the timeline. Since this is our first time doing this, we are going to do a few things. The first thing is we are going to name our settlement. I have named it Seander. That, I believe, is the largest city in the Wheel of Time universe. For those of you joining for the first time, we are going to be using Wheel of Time as a place to find all of our character names and any type of locations and things of that nature that we're supposed to name. We're using that book series. And if you haven't read it, I've been heard you should check it out. I sadly have only made it through the first book. Actually, I only made it through half, but I did see the show, which was kind of cool. Now, we also gain 1 survival, and on top of that, once we get to this particular point where our survivors are able to return, we get to give them all 1 survival because we were able to name our settlement. It says when the settlement is named for the first time, returning survivors gain 1 survival. A couple of our survivors did use it, so I gave them 1 of their survival. On top of that, we get to heal any of the parts of the track on their character sheet that they took damage on, but of course, sadly, you cannot get rid of any like permanent injuries that they have sustained in the last battle. We're going to then, of course, like I said, gain our endeavors, and then we're going to move into the timeline. For the first day, we are going to check off our little box here to say that we're moving into this area. And the first thing we are going to do is we are going to do our first Crimson Day, which I did. Then we're going to use our Dreamless Respite is what we're going to do for our first story event. Then we're going to do First Meal and then Extinguished Guidepost. So let's check out the Dreamless Respite. Here's the picture located in the book right next to the Dreamless Respite. We do have, I believe, the gambler sitting here with all his mighty ball up above him. We'll, of course, hopefully learn a little bit about this as we move through the game. There are going to be multiple things we are going to be doing through the Dreamless Respite. The first thing is we have to nominate a survivor to gesture over the Roar of Snores. The survivor I'm going to nominate is we are going to nominate Rand. Rand is going to be our survivor. Let's see how this all pans out. The survivor approaches a mass of dreaming bodies held aloft by a motionless giant. The snoring forms a dense roar that drowns all other sound. The nominated survivor voice is swallowed by the din. The settlement gains the dreamless language innovation, but they find it ineffective for communicating around the sphere of snores. They learn to communicate without sound. The settlement gains the silent dialect innovation. The nominated survivor gains +2 understanding. All right, let's do that, and then we'll come back. The first thing you're going to notice, it did say dreamless language, so it does tell you that you don't use the language from the base game. We're going to be using the one from this particular campaign, the dreamless language. And it says here, my survival limit is now +1, so we now have 2, and all survivors gain the encouraged survival action, which once per round, if standing, spend 1 survivor to call out to a non-deaf survivor. They stand if knocked down. And I'm going to add the language consequences to the innovation deck, and we'll get to that shortly. Now, of course, we also get to learn this as well, silent dialect. It says, the settlement develops a silent form of communication to cope with the ever-present din of snoring dreamers. All survivors gain the fist pump survival action. That's awesome. Fist pump once per round. If standing, spend 1 survival to gesture to a non-blind survivor. They stand if knocked down. Okay, so we have 2 different ways to help get our comrades off the ground. So on all of our character sheets, I have updated our survival actions to give them encourage and fist pump. Also, Rand is going to have gained 2 understanding. Continuing in the book, we are going to search the innovation cards for the dreamless language and silent dialect, replace them in play, and record this on your Arc Settlement record sheet. And there is a place in your record sheet to write down all of the innovations that you have learned. So I have wrote those down in that particular spot. The survivors agree they must hunt to live. Add the prologue monster Crimson Crocodile to your quarry list. Dreamless language is now the innovation that sparks the creation of the innovation deck. So we're going to build that innovation deck now. But just to show you really quickly, here are our quarry quarries, we do have now the Crimson Crocodile, and I've wrote our first 2 innovations right here in the book, and I have decided to make 4 female and 3 male survivors coming from the ones that we found from our first Crimson Day. I haven't named them yet. We'll be naming them based on the Wheel of Time series, so if you want to give me some names for some of these survivors, that'd be awesome. I will make sure to use them. Of course, like I said, we're pulling from the Wheel of Time series, so please help me out. As our Dreamless Respite says, we're going to build the Innovation Deck. The Innovation Deck represents potential cultural and technological growth of your settlement. It will grow throughout your campaign as you gain new innovation cards. I'm going to find the 6 innovation cards, the language consequences listed under their title, and they're Ammonia, Drums, Hovel, Inner Lantern, Paint, and Symposium. We're going to shuffle these 6 cards to form your Settlement Innovation Deck. We'll place it face down in the designated space on the settlement board. The Innovation Deck is persistent. Make sure you preserve the unique combinations of cards in your deck between play stations. The settlement gathers around the Giant Guardian. So let's take care of this and then we'll move on. Let's quickly go over the innovation deck and anything that's changed. First, we're going to grab our basic ones they talked about here. Now, notice I sent paint aside. If you did watch our first video, we actually gained this through the battle, which was pretty interesting. So Drums, Hovel, Inner Lantern, Ammonia, and Symposium are actually the ones that are going to make up our first innovation deck. So we're going to set those right there. Also, when you're building the innovation deck and getting things ready, you're supposed to remove the original pictograph and sculpture innovations. We're going to remove both of those. Those are no longer used for this particular campaign, and we're going to add sculpture and pictograph to the potential ones we can learn. Now, one thing I've noticed, which I feel a little sad, is these are actually 2 different colors on the back. I wish they would have been the same color, but alas, that is, I guess, how printing at between 3 years has gone. And on top of that, we have all the ones from this campaign that we don't know when to add them to our deck yet. We'll learn and able to add those as the campaign grows. But for this particular campaign, it's going to be a little different because since we already know paint, I'm going to be adding the paint consequence cards to the innovation deck already for the very first set of innovation cards. I'm going to give them a truffle shuffle and place them out on the board. But do know that those are the changes you have to make to it. And because we got this during the first battle, I'm adding that in. That normally wouldn't be part of the original setup of this game. The other thing is, now that we are here, we do gain the ability of Paint, which it says the settlement swells with creative energy. All survivor gain the dash survival action. This is super important. Dash is one of the most powerful things in the game from how I understand. Once per round, you may spend 1 survival to gain the 1+1 movement and use it immediately. We can see detailed rules in the rulebook. And I'm going to add the Paint Consequence Innovation deck, which we already did. So all of our characters not only have Fist Pump, Dodge, and Encourage, but we also now have the dash action as well, which hopefully means we can get out of the way of some of those real nasty attacks. One more thing I want to talk about when it comes to innovations is there are things called principles that are going to happen when you reach certain milestones during the campaign. And in this particular campaign, it does tell you to remove the romantic one from your core game and add this one in. So we do have the ability to learn romantic. We're going to learn this particular set of romantic card instead of the core game. Now, these will be set aside until the time it's told that we're supposed to learn those. Continuing, we're going to move into the Giant Guardian. It says, exhausted. The nominated survivor nestles in the overflowing robes of the encumbered creature. It remains still, enthusiastically motioning for the others to join. The survivor names the settlement's guardian the Dream Keeper. Search the settlement location card for the Keeper of Dreams and place it face up in your play area. The Keeper of Dreams is the source of all innovations and further locations the settlement will develop. Huddled in the Dream Keeper's robe, the sudden horror of existence is replaced by a spreading sense of calm. Under the droning thrum of snores and sighs, they drift off into dreamless sleep. Remove any disorders. Oh, that's awesome. The nominated survivor gains the Grounded ability. So at any time, you may set your insanity to 0, 1, or 2 limit once per lantern year. So I could even do that during an encounter? Wow, that's actually really powerful. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write just Grounded right here, once per lantern year. Insanity equals 0 through 2. I'm putting that on Rand's card. He's pretty much gaining all the awesome things here. Here is the Keeper of Dreams, our first settlement. It's very similar to, I believe, is the Lantern Horde from the core game. It gives you the ability to endeavor and bone, organ, hide resources to innovate. And if you innovate, you're able to gain an innovation, of course. And then we have the ability to build bonesmith, organ grinder, and skinneries using different endeavors as well. This is very similar to the way the original one was, though there is something down here that unlocks if you have the ammonia innovation. It allows you to spend an innovation to groom the Dreamkeeper. Once per lantern year, I can nominate a survivor. They trim the Dreamkeeper's toenails and wringing the snoring Dreamkeeper's drool from its robes. I can roll a d10 on a 1. I suffer -1 luck. Otherwise, I gain +1 Lumia. Lumia is going to be a resource that we'll talk about more as we continue to build the civilization. Moving down the timeline, we are going to enter into the first meal. Our characters are all having an actual banquet here. It looks absolutely awesome. We are eating some food and being merry. Similar to the last story event, we are going to have to nominate a survivor to raise a drink. Since we did Rand the first time, I'm going to do a different survivor this time. We're going to do Iguina. We're going to have her do this. Let's see what happens when she raises a drink. The settlement gathers for their first meal. The nominated survivor raises their hands and mark the settlement's unity in a sanguine sip. Communal consumption benefits the Ark survivors' collective cognition. Build the collective cognition rewards deck, ordering the number cards with the lowest value on top. If duplicate numbers appear, use only one of each value, including only collective cognition monster reward cards for monsters in your campaign. Collective cognition flourishes based on the variety of and challenge of defeated monsters. When a monster is defeated, update the settlement victories section on the Ark settlement record sheet and to determine the changes to the collective cognition. The survivors digest their feast. Gain 1 collective cognition. Record this on the Ark settlement record sheet. Collective cognition imparts with its first reward. Gain the collective cognition reward card marked with the 1 on its back. Then we're going to nominate a survivor, and the nominated survivor, begins discourse. There's a complete section on the back of the record sheet for collective cognition. This is a new thing for this particular campaign. It's really awesome. I actually really think it's a great way to do this. So we have wrote down our quarry was the Crimson Crocodile. We've gained 1 collective cognition. As you go through, the first time you defeat any monster on its first level, you're going to gain another collective cognition. Now, if you ever defeat a level 2, you're going to gain 2 collective cognition, and you can do that twice. And for a level 3, you can gain 3 collective cognitions each time you kill it, up to 3 times. So for example, say I defeat the Crimson Crocodile next lantern year at level 1, I'm going to gain 1 collective cognition. If I go through and defeat it again at level 1, I'm going to gain nothing. But if we learn about a new monster and we attempt to fight that one and defeat it, we'd gain another collective cognition. And then if we, of course, got bold, we could try to take on the Crimson Crocodile level 2 and gain 2 more. I hope that makes sense. Of course, the Nemesis monsters as well are going to give you collective cognitions as you defeat them. The collective cognition is a deck of cards that starts at number 1, and there's a number 2, and then it kind of skips around a little bit until you're able to get those particular numbers all the way up to 46. So you can get up to, like, I guess the sky's the limit as to what you can actually get. But we have those particular cards there, and it does tell you which ones you unlock as you go. So the first one we're going to do is this Facets of Power, and we're going to see what that is in just a second. It did say that there are a few duplicate ones. Number 6 and 16 in this particular deck is duplicates, and those particular ones are used for the quarries we're not fighting, the Screaming Antelope and the White Lion. So we're going to be removing those particular cards because we are going to be fighting the Crimson Crocodile and the Smog Sister, the Smog enemy. I apologize, I don't remember the name of it right now because I haven't actually fought it. We're going to be using those as our level 1 and level 2 monsters, or quarry, I should say. So we do get to see what the first one is. Let's flip it over. It says right here, Facets of Existence. Attain Tier 1 philosophies. When you attain philosophies, they become available in your campaign. Return to the first meal to build the starting philosophy deck. So we'll return and start building that. Continuing on with discourse, it says, the survivors examine the facets of existence through many lenses. Spirited debates erupt in the settlement as the survivors compare their viewpoints. Build the philosophy deck. Take 2 random Tier 1 philosophy cards and the core philosophy card Dreamism and set aside the starting philosophy card Survivalism. If there's no core philosophy for your campaign, include an additional Tier 1 philosophy. The reason there may not be a core philosophy card is if you're not doing the Dreamkeeper one where you're going to use Dreamism, but you still want to use this particular part of a campaign, then you would grab that Tier 1 philosophy. But we're using the Dreamkeeper, so we're going to have that Dreamism as our core philosophy. Then we're going to shuffle the cards and place Survivalism on top, put the survival or the philosophy deck in play. The survivors share frantic reenactments of their tactics. Build the starting knowledge deck, find darkness 1, despair 1, fear 1, and hunger. If any of these have advanced to a higher level during the prologue showdown, replace the card with the higher level achieved. Shuffle these cards and place the knowledge deck in play. So I believe our hunger 1 is now hunger 2, so we are going to be replacing that one. The nominated survivor gains a random knowledge from the deck. They focus and ponder the darkness. There's a lot going on there. Let me explain how this philosophy deck is created. First off, we're going to take Dreamism and Survival. We're going to remove them from any of the decks that we're going to be creating. And then we're going to find the Tier 1 philosophies. Now, the way you can denote which philosophies are which tier is first off, the way that the character itself is portrayed is one of the signs. And then if you look down at the very bottom of this card, it will show the number. So this is number 1. So these are the 1 philosophies. These are the 2 philosophies, 3 philosophies, and these are particular ones that might be added in through different story events. So we're going to remove those. We don't need those, but we are going to take these particular ones here. It looks like there's just a few of them. We're going to give them a good old little truffle shuffle here so that they're all shuffled up and ready to go. Now, sadly, I do not have my card sleeves for these particular cards yet. They are an odd size, so I do not have them yet. And then we're going to, oh, I should have shuffled in our Dreamism card as well. And then we're going to put Survivalism back on top after we shuffle this up a little bit more, because now they had to add another card there. There you go, shuffle it a little bit more. Perfect. And then we'll put Survivalism on top, and then our philosophies deck is ready to go. Then making our knowledge deck, we're just going to take Despair, Hunger 2, Darkness, and Fear. We're going to give those a good old truffle shuffle here, so these knowledge cards are ready to go as well. We're going to put those down. That is our knowledge deck that we have. Then we get to draw one of these, and this is the extra one we get to learn. We now have Hunger 2 as well on that character. I have added Hunger 2 to the different knowledges that she has. And do know that you can only ever have 2 knowledges down here. If you ever gain another one, I believe you have to remove one of these, and then you can gain that knowledge if you wish. There is eventually a philosophy that might, when you get into the philosophy parts, you're going to gain a knowledge from that, but that's called a treant knowledge, and you cannot get rid of that if you gain another knowledge and you have no place to put it. The other thing I want to mention is, I did not mention this, but after we defeated the Crimson Crocodile, we all should have gained 1 hunt experience point, so all of our characters that returned are going to gain that as well. Ponder the Darkness is the last section in this particular story event. It says, with the sudden acceleration of culture, the nominated survivor sees the path unfolding before them. Surviving the darkness is paramount. They gain Hunt XP up to their first milestone of 2 XP and adopt a philosophy. Oh, sweetness. When ARC survivors reach their first Hunt experience milestone at 2, they adopt a philosophy by drawing the top card from the philosophy deck. The nominated survivor adopts Survivalism because, of course, that's the card that's on top. Open the Survivalism philosophy book and follow the directions on the starting page. Use an ARC survivor record sheet to record their Hunt XP milestones. Neurosis and tenacity, the tenant knowledge they cannot lose or exchange. After recording, shuffle tenacity into the knowledge deck. The nominated survivor reaches the first rank of Survivalism as their perception of the darkness is clarified. Turn to rank 1 in read it aloud, and resolve the rules. During the future settlement phases, survivors who reach new Hunt XP milestones will adopt philosophies and advance during the development step. That's absolutely sweetness. So like it said, we'll draw the top card off here, which is going to be Survivalism, which just states that I am going to adopt Survivalism, which is now going to be this book right here. And we're going to turn this open and take a look at what's inside. If we see, we have something right here we're going to read, and then we're going to continue on. This philosophy book describes one perspective survivors might adopt to make sense of their world. When a survivor adopts a philosophy, one, they gain a tenant knowledge and a neurosis of this philosophy. I create the rank milestones by bolding the corresponding Hunt XP boxes on their ARC Survivor record sheets, and then advance to the first rank of the philosophy. Survivors cannot help but ponder the nature of their existence. All survivors must ponder if they are eligible or become eligible during the development step of the settlement phase. This increases their philosophy rank by 1. Survivors can only advance once per lantern year. Here are some more rules about it. If you notice here, we're going to have a philosophy name, we're going to have a neurosis and a tenant. The defining values of these philosophies: draw the tenant knowledge card and record its rules on the ARC Survivor record sheet. Add the tenant knowledge card to the settlement knowledge deck if it's not already there, and record at the settlement record sheet. The next bullet point says that that's going to represent the path the survivor worldview follows. It shows Hunt XP milestones when the survivors must ponder, increase the philosophy rank. The neurosis is a compulsive behavior of this philosophy. Record its rules on the ARC Survivor record sheet. For this particular one, it is all stated right here, and these bullet points you just saw over on this side are all going to be explained here. Like it said, the name of it is going to be survivalism. Its neurosis is selfish, and its tenant is tenacity. Tenacity is this particular one right here. It is my tenant knowledge, and what it allows me to do is when you depart, I gain a survival token, and I may spend that survival token at any time to gain 1 survival. And when I spend a survival token, I am going to gain 1 box, and if I spend 2 tokens, I get to move to tenacity 2. So this is pretty sweet. So on top of any survival I'm able to take with me when I depart, I also gain an extra one based on this knowledge that I can use at any time. That is amazing. Super excited for that. Now, of course, we do have our neurosis, which is selfish. And it says here, when you encourage another survivor, I have to roll a d10 on a 6+. I do not encourage them, and I keep my survival. And I cannot encourage, again, the rest of this round. And if possible, I must use the ability Meat Shield to avoid harm. But right now, we don't have that, so I don't have to worry about it. And here is where all the different milestones are going to take place for this particular survivor. Notice they do retire still, but they might retire at different times based on their philosophy. So we are going to adopt the philosophy here, but then we are going to gain rank 1 at 2, or at, I should say, Hunt Experience 4. Now, of course, I kind of lied. It says when we adopt the philosophy, this is going to say proceed to rank 1. I believe you automatically do that when you get to here. So when we get to 2, we'll go rank up, then rank 3, then rank 4, then retire. So that's how we're supposed to do this. So we are going to go to the first rank. This particular philosophy has a next page that says, if you reach 12 Hunt XP and have never departed the settlement, you make a lifelong leap of logic. Proceed to the divergent rank of this book. I don't know how you're ever going to get that, but somehow you might actually gain that. We'll see. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, so we don't have to worry about it. But do be aware that there are some weird things that work with these philosophies. So, like I said, I don't know how you're going to reach 12 Hunt XP without ever leaving, but if it does, something different would happen based on this philosophy. Here's our first rank of our philosophy. It's nice little pencil sketch there. It says survivalism only. You are alone. All that matters is your survival. Adapt to survive. I'm going to gain 1 Lumia, and I'm going to roll a d10. And again, I'll explain Lumia hopefully a little bit later as we continue. We'll roll our d10 here. We got a 5. 5 is going to fall into this area right here. Your heart hardens to your fellow survivors as you imagine numerous scenarios in which you must choose yourself over them. A hard lump forms in your throat. You disgust yourself. You strike the ground harder and harder until the stone cracks beneath your bloodied fist. I'm going to gain the Desperate Strike knowledge card. Now, depending on what I rolled, as you could tell up here, I might have gained the accuracy training, or down here I could have gained strength training, which are different knowledges based on what I could have rolled. And to show you this part as well, moving down here, if we'd have had 5 collective cognition and rolled high enough, now of course we'd have also had to have the 5 collective cognition, we only have 1, I'd be able to gain this extra part of it as well. Now from what I understand, if we had 11 collective cognition, we'd have to take advantage of whatever this is as well, or it would skip the other parts completely. But it does say at this point of surviving where everyone dies in the end, or what is the point? I apologize. The idea sets your teeth on edge. I gain a random disorder, and I gain a random knowledge, and I gain +2 Lumia. Now, of course, as we go forward, we may learn more of these in our philosophy, and we'll be turning the pages to the other parts of this book as we continue through our survivor's life. Of course, if they survive. See, I need there. Survivalism. Oh, pretty good. Here's our revised character sheet, and here's how we're going to do things going forward. Of course, if you have any suggestions to how to make this easier or harder, please let me know. There is a lot going on in Kingdom Death, and adding the Dreamkeeper campaign, there's even more going on as well. So I'm going to try to make sure I keep track of everything, but there is a lot. Now, going forward, if you do not want to play with everything that this game is offering, there is a thing explaining the amount of difficulty each set of these rules are adding in. So when you play your game, you can choose kind of how I guess you could say, how complex you want to make the game for yourself. Here we are with Iguina now. The hunt experience is going to change a little bit because now we have survivalism. I've wrote everything for survivalism, including our rank. Now, if you're going to notice, there's some little tick marks up here. This is for tenacity that we got. Tenacity does say I only have to do it twice. Now, instead of, so I can remind myself, I'm putting tick marks up there so that once I color in all the boxes up to those tick marks, that's when it will change over to its new form for our knowledge. I also have replaced our Hunger 2 with Desperate Strike, which is our new one that we got here. This is Desperate Strike. It just has a theory here, and whenever I get a perfect hit, I get to gain 1 box. There's only 1 to move it to Desperate Strike 2, and so again, I've only ticked up 1 little tick there so I remind myself. Also with survivalism, it showed us what our hunt experience track is going to look like. So again, I have put little tick marks up above those to remind myself as to when the next parts of those are going to happen. Now remember, tenacity is now our treant knowledge, and we cannot remove that one when we gain other knowledges that we have gained down there. With everything written down, we do add these to our knowledge deck now. Continuing with our update, the timeline. It seems like a long updated timeline, but it is the first one, so we have a lot going on. We are going to move to Extinguished Guidepost, and here's the picture. They're all standing around a lantern, and I guess bleeding on it to maybe form some kind of bond. This story event is called Extinguished Guidepost. We do not have to nominate a survivor yet. It just says just outside the settlement, they gather to form a deadly pact. A death pact is formed. They will return with a kill or not at all. Gain the Death Pact innovation and the outskirts settlement location. Replace a random basic hunt card with the Scout basic hunt event card. An ill-omened stench spreads through the settlement. Following the smell, the survivors reach an extinguished guidepost. The foul wind moans through the darkened lamp. On the ground, the survivors find a waxy gray object. Its eye-watering smell prevents them from seeing it clearly. Gagging and weeping, they roll it in layers of cloth until its smell is merely repulsive. The survivors contrive a use for the dreaded pack. Nominate a survivor to accompany the hunting survivors. The dreaded burden is lifted onto their shoulders. They are the Scout this lantern year. They feel grim responsibility. So here are the different things we were told to grab. First, we have the Death Pact innovation. It is a Scout. It says, when survivors perish on the hunt or are defeated in the showdown, I go to Logistics of Death. I can spend 1 innovation as a special innovated pictograph, a special innovative pentagraph. Okay, plus 1 hide and organ. So I have to spend a hide and organ and a endeavor, and I can innovate pictograph, which might not be a bad thing to do. Now, on top of that, we have the outskirts one right here. It says, extinguish guidepost. When a survivor dies, their gear does not return to the settlement storage. So that's terrible. Scout. You may nominate a survivor to be the Scout to join the hunting survivors when they depart. The Scout is equipped with the dreaded pact and must use the Scout Gear Grid. The Scout is still a survivor and gains departing bonuses alongside the hunting survivors. Only a Scout can use gear with the Scout keyword. So I'm going to guess that almost everything we can make here, I'm guessing, is going to be for the Scout. There is a thing down here. I can spend an endeavor to do hollow stone gathering. Once per settlement phase, a survivor may carefully search the outskirts, gain the hollow stone strange resource. So that's something I can do in the outskirts. This is really cool. There's a lot of new things I can do. Now, of course, I need face painting or the heart flute in order to gain these bottom ones down here. Now, we do have paint, which means I did add face painting to the innovation deck, so we might be able to get that pretty quick. And the other thing it told me to do was grab the hunt event for Scout Hunt event. And at this point, if this is drawn, you'd roll a d10 on the Hunt Scout event table. If the Scout dies, draw a Hunt event instead. Now, sadly, I'm a little disappointed in the fact that this is such a bigger discrepancy than the core game's basic Hunt events. And I don't know if there was a pack that was supposed to make these all be the same color or not, or if they're just different colors and there's nothing you can do about it. What I'm probably going to do when we go to the Hunt event steps is I'm just going to lay down how many we're supposed to have, and I'll roll a die to determine which one of the Hunt events I'm supposed to be able to draw from. I hope that makes sense in order to alleviate the fact that you're going to know kind of what is coming up. The person I'm going to nominate as our Scout is going to be her, mainly because she already has -1 strength, -1 speed, so I'm hoping she can just kind of hang out in the background, nothing happens. Nominating her means I do have to roll on a Grim Responsibility table, so we'll quickly just roll a die and see what we get. We get a 6, which will end up being right here. I do get to gain the Scout Gear Grid, and then the nominated here, I'd roll the d10, which I did. I got a 6. The Scout's body adjusts to the weight. Burden. Even the smell seems to fade into the background. Without the bundle, the Scout feels exposed, and I'm going to gain the Anxiety Disorder. And that gives me the ability to say how to build the disorder deck, which is a little bit different. It's not too different, but you're going to grab all the basic ones from the original game, and then you're going to add in all the ones from this particular expansion here that have the symbols for our monsters that we're fighting, and of course a few that have to go with this particular campaign. We're going to add those all together here and shuffle them up to create one big deck, and we are going to be able to gain, lucky us, the Anxiety Disorder. It says you are afraid of being afraid. You are a nervous wreck, and monsters can smell this in your scent. At the start of each showdown, I'm going to gain the priority target token unless I have a stinky gear in my gear grid. I'm really hoping that that pack is stinky. Here is the Scout Gear Grid, and I'll show it in just a second, but it does have a little blurb up here. When the survivors depart, you may nominate a survivor to wear the dreaded pack. They must use this gear grid and depart as the Scout for this lantern year. A survivor with cursed gear may not depart as the Scout. The Scout Gear Grid is only one that may have gear with the Scout keyword. And lucky for us, this dreaded pack is an item Scout, stinky, and heavy. So lucky for us, that means that it is stinky. It does say you get -2 movement. If you are alone during the hunt or at the start of your activation during the showdown, you may enact the death pack logistics of death. You awaken the dreaded pack with its smell bell. A blinding stench erupts. Also, interestingly enough, because the pack is so big, we're only able to hold 4 things here, and I do always have the ability to use Fist and Tooth if things get a little bit out of control. That's it for all of our story events and updating our timeline for now. The only other deck left to make that we didn't have to do during this part of the game was we have to build also our, fighting arts deck. And what they tell you to do is just take all the core ones, removing anything from monsters that you're not using, and adding in the ones from this particular campaign, or of course, whatever monsters you're using from that particular campaign. So we're going to take those, shuffle those all together to make ourselves a fighting arts deck. So we do have that as well. With all our story events completed, we're going to move into update the death count, but I do want to mention during the update timeline, you would normally draw a settlement event, but this is considered our first event that we draw, which is why I resolved that first before any of our actual story events on the timeline. But in future, we're going to be drawing a random story event, of course, from our deck of events that we built earlier in this game. Of course, if I'm wrong about that, please let me know in the comment below, and if you notice any any errors post-launch. I'll be putting a pinned comment to help anybody as they're learning through how to play this game. And if you notice anything, please let me know so I can add that to the pinned comments. We do not have any dead survivors. Woot woot, we made it through. We're going to go to the check milestone story event. We did that as well. We're going to move to number 7, which is going to be our development step of this. At the start of our development step, this is everything we have available to us that we could use endeavors on. We have, of course, our Keeper of Dreams, where we could spend an endeavor and some things to innovate. We could also build the Bonesmith, the Organ Grinder, and the Skinnery, which would cost all of our endeavors to do all 4 of those. But for the first time when I start a civilization, or a settlement, I should say, I'm at a loss as to how I should probably go with this. For one, I could use one of these to gain some hollow stones. I could use one of these and a hide an organ to gain pictograph, and then I don't know, and then I would only have 2 left, one to innovate, and then I would only have the ability to maybe build a Bonesmith, Organ Grinder, or Skinnery. Or does this actually matter? I mean, I think I'm going to save Death Pack for another time, because I don't, a hide and an organ, I'm already doing hide and organ, and I got 1 bone here. And I know there's some good innovation. Symposium is fantastic because it allows me to draw multiples, if I remember right, which is super good. So I think we are going to innovate with one of them, but then for the other 3, I have to make a choice. Do I want to build all 3 of these, or do I want to do the Hollow Stone Gathering? I think I want to do the Hollow Stone Gathering because I've never done it before. And the other 2 are going to be building either probably the Bonesmith and the Skinnery at first. Of course, we do have the Crimson Crockery from when we defeated the Prelude Crocodile. We're able to unlock this potential place where we can use a lot of the resources that we got to build some of these cool looking things here. First things first, we're going to discard our Monster Hide, Groomed Nails, and Flat Vein, and one of our endeavors to innovate. We are going to use those 3. One is a bone, one's an organ, and one is a hide. We're going to shuffle up our deck here, and then we get to draw 2 and choose 1. So let's shuffle those up, grab that one, and I'm going to grab that one, and we'll see what we have found. We have found ourselves the hovel and drums, so we have to choose which one of these we want. You can never have enough survival, so I think we're going to go with hovel. We're going to give ourselves +1 to our survival limit, and I get to gain a survival when I depart. So that means our survival limit is actually 3 right now, 1 for hovel and 1 for our dreamless language and 1 for naming our settlement. And I actually think I'm wrong, and if I'm not, please let me know. I think our survival limit is only +2. We don't get 1 for naming the settlement. We get 1 for naming our characters, but not for naming the settlement unless I am wrong. So our departing survival is only 2 right now because of our 2 innovations that we have. Next, we're going to go for our Hollow Stone Gathering and gain a Hollow Stone Strange Resource. It's just a smooth, empty face. Not sure what that's going to do, but we'll be able to keep this in our settlement. And of course, if we get 3 of them, we could use them and an organ to gain Stone Face Cloak, or if there's anything else on here that uses these hollow stones, we can do that as well. The final 2 endeavors we are going to spend to make our Bonesmith and our Skinnery. So these are going to be all the different locations we have. Now we can use all the rest of our resources to build things. The first thing we're going to do is actually not build anything. We're going to eat the pseudo penis, because that means I can put a tick mark on my hunger 2 here, and he's going to be able to gain 3 survival. So we'll put that up to 2 because that's our max that we can have. He'd probably get that anyway, but this way I'm also able to gain the Invigorator Fighting Art. In the Dreamkeeper campaign, whenever you gain a fighting art, you're going to go to a story event called Vaultless. Here's the picture. I have no idea what's about to happen to us, but it looks like some arenas or something is going on inside apparently these people's heads. I don't know. Pretty cool looking picture though. Vaultless states, as you walk the winding, high-walled through path, you feel the border approaching. Explore the maze or press through the barrier. If an ARC survivor would gain a fighting art, instead choose to explore the maze or press through. When an ARC survivor gains a secret fighting art, they gain it as normal and suffer +1 systemic pressure or torment. End this event. So I can either explore the maze or press through and gain +1 systemic pressure and roll a d10. I don't like systemic pressure at this point because that's bad. I don't have a lot of armor and everything to keep myself from rolling on those evil tables of death. So we're going to explore the maze. I'll roll up my die and see we get a 6. So that's going to be 2 through 9. It says you scramble up heaps of experience and impressions. The fighting art forms your final foothold. It crumbles as you ascend to higher clarity. I'm going to gain 1 Lumia. And at this point, I'll try to explain what Lumia is. Lumia is something we're going to spend at some point in the campaign once we're able to unlock the ability to buy knowledge. We can buy knowledge cards based on their lumen cost and what is available to us. For example, if we want to buy despair, it would cost us 0 lumina because it is 0 up there. But if we wanted to get tenacity, it would cost us 1. Now, we have not unlocked this ability yet, but I know we keep seeing these words pop up, so I want you to understand what exactly that resource is that we're gaining on our characters. Now, sadly, it doesn't look like I gained the fighting art, though, if I went to explore the maze. So in the future, if I wanted to actually gain a fighting art, I probably would have wanted to press through. But again, I didn't want to gain the, systemic pressure at this point. But, and of course, if I'm wrong about that, please let me know. But I don't think I gain it, mainly because I think the other part over here says you would be able to gain that particular fighting art as opposed to any of the other bonuses we get. There's always so many options on how to buy and kit out your characters. This is one of the greatest things about this game, being able to craft all these cool things. I have multiple options here. I think for one, we are going to make this skull helm. There really is no reason not to. It's one of the, essentially only takes 1 skull to do. We are going to make the skull helm. That is a given. There are my options right here. This is something I was thinking about doing. First, I was thinking about making this crimson dress by using a crimson fin and a monster hide, which would allow me to start getting the crimson crockery set. I thought that'd be really cool. And I could also get this croc bone hammer. I thought that'd be kind of fun because it's really the only thing I have here that I can build with what I have for my resources. Of course, I was also thinking about getting some of the rawhide stuff as well. Even though it's not new and shiny, it's still going to help us survive. But the more I think about it, I think it would be a smarter plan. And you have to tell me in the comments below if this is a good idea or not. Because it's not as fun, but I think it's a smarter plan, is if I use all of these as just hides. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hides to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 complete rawhide set right off the bat. I think that's our best bet, because then I can give one person this entire set, giving them the set bonus as well. I only have a crimson bone and a perfect bone left. Now, the hardest part is to know how important this perfect bone is. And when you play this game, if you do not have the 1.6 upgrade, the set itself will come with, the expansion will come with these. Then you should add each one to your basic resource deck. If you already have the 1.6 update or the 1.6 version of the core box of Kingdom Death Monster, these 3 that you find in the expansion, do not add them, because there already is one in each of the basic resource decks, and that's how many you want in there. You want 1 basic resource, 1 perfect bone, 1 perfect organ, and 1 perfect hide. Those are how many should be in that deck. So it's not going to be very often we're going to draw it. So I'm not sure if I want to spend it just to get a croc hammer, which is right here. It doesn't look too bad. It's a club that has clobber 4, which means I get +4 strength when attempting to hit a super dense location on the crimson crocodile or anything else I hit. Sadly, I don't know how many super dense location that thing has, if it even has one. I don't know, because remember when we fought the White Lion, I know the White Lion does not have one, and this is the first quarry, so it might not have one as well. So I think we are going to save these. We're going to go in with just our founding stones again. Is that the best idea? Probably not. I should probably bring a weapon with me. I should probably bring a weapon with me. I really should. I think we are going to build the croc hammer. Why not? We'll build the croc hammer. If this perfect bone is something I really should have kept, please let me know in the comments below. But we're going to use every resource we have to build a full rawhide set, a skull helm, and a croc bone hammer. Let me know if you think that was something I should have done, or is there another route I should have gone? Having finished with our development, we are going to move into the Prepare Departing Survivors. So of course, we're going to give somebody this Rawhide armor set. The Rawhide armor set does give me +1 to all locations. So now every one of these does have +2. On top of that, it does have the ability that when you perform a survival action, roll a d10 on a 6+, I get to gain 1 survival, basically keeping the survival I would have used. We're going to give all of this to Iguina. This is our plan. Now, of course, I'll write down all the armor values over here once we get going, but this person is going to depart with these things here. Plus, it starts with 2 survival, 1 when we came back from our first turn, and then we get 1 for departing survivors because of our hovel innovation. At this point, the reason I gave her all of this stuff is because she still has this fear 1 where she tries to suffer damage. So hopefully the reason I gave her all this stuff is she can be the target of the attack and take the damage. Now, of course, she also has survivalism and things of that nature, so she's kind of one of our coolest people. So I don't want to lose her, but upgrading this fear knowledge I think will be a good thing to go through. Our next survivor is going to gain the skull helm and that Crocborn hammer, and that is going to be Rand. Rand is going to grab all of that, giving him 3 head armor, 1 waist. He gains the 2 survival, and he already has 1 hunt experience. We're going back to the basics on the rest of our guys here. We got Perrin. He should have a hunt experience right there. But other than that, he's going to have just those 2 things for his character moving forward. Our last character we have to equip is going to be a new survivor named Elena. And if you notice, I actually gave this to Rand. Rand should not have a founding stone. He's just going to have that giant club. So I'm going to give the 3rd stone that we have to her. Now she's coming in completely with nothing, but she does gain the 2 survival, 1 for creating her character, and then 1 for the hovel. And we have our scout, which is carrying the dreaded pack, and like we've put before, it's going to be our character that's kind of banged up already, so super cool. And of course, the monster of choice to hunt is going to be our Crimson Crocodile. It's our only choice right now, and that's cool. So let's take him on again. Once there was a beast whose heart swelled with delight. It wanted nothing more than to revel with others. Yet try as it might, it found no one else who mirrored its mirth. It learned to share the joy in its heart with a twirl of its fingers. The showdown with the Crimson Crocodile is going to show that we're going to place one of his particular hunt events right here. He's going to be right there, and we're going to put some of our basic hunt events in these particular spaces there. We have our hunt board all set up. I am going to take his hunt events and give them a good old truffle shuffle here. And then what we're going to do is place 2 of them down. 1 is going to go right here. 1 is going to go behind him right there if he ever decides to back up. Now, like I said previously, we have multiple colors in our basic hunt events, so I'm going to mix these up. But instead of placing them out there, we're going to place them right here. And I'm going to roll 2 dice, and then we're going to page through these cards until we find the one we want. That's the only way I can think of to make it so that these are completely random instead of knowing what's going to be coming. The other way is to maybe put something on top of the deck and draw from the bottom, but even then, after I shuffle them up, I'd know what's on top. So if anybody has a better solution to this, that would be awesome. I would love to hear it. But for now, that's what we're going to do. I do have our survivor from our past that I had painted up, and if you've noticed, I actually do have her arms magnetized, so I can magnetize her arms, put other things on there. So that is going to be Iguina, I think is who that person is, who's got the entire rawhide headband and everything. So that's her right here. I don't have the base done yet. I apologize. But the rest of their guys are going to be from the original core game, just all set from what we played with when we did the prologue. Let's go to the first hunt event. I'm going to have to choose who is going to be the survivor that is going to move forward. Let's start with our new survivor, Elaine. She's going to go forward and bring the rest of our group with us. We're going to roll our dice and see what we get here. We got a 6. So remember to start with number 2. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is just going to be a regular normal hunt event. We'll roll a double 10-sider and see what we get. The white will be our 10s die, and this will be our 1s die. So we got a 64. We have found a stone fountain. 2 cupped stone hands rise out of the ground. The hands hold clear, cold water that trickles through the stone fingers in seemingly endless supply. Any survivor may consume from the fountain. If they do, they gain +1 courage and roll a d10. All right, I think I'm going to have Rand do this. Rand can do this. You can see how this goes for him. He got a 9. It says, the water is clear and pure like none the survivor has tasted. Gain +1 survival. All right, you got +1 survival and +1 courage, and that's all the people that are going to consume from this stone fountain today. I've removed this from the game, or from this hunt events now, and so the deck is a little bit smaller. We're going to move forward next. Rand drank from the fountain. I think he's super excited to see this. He's going to go forward. Let's see what happens. He's going to see the first Crimson Crocodile Hunt event. Let's see what he has found. He has found missing faces. Crudely cut holes littered the ground. Stone faces are missing from each gap underfoot. Nominate a survivor to investigate. Oh my gosh. Oh, one of the new girl. The new girl can investigate. Send her to her death. Here we go. Let's see. We have to roll a d10. Let's see what we have got. We'll roll it up here. We got a 7. Let's see what 7 does here. It says, you note a thin layer of blood glass that creates a strange face mold. Gain the glass mask fighting art. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Remember, whenever we gain a fighting art, I have to roll on the vault list. I'm not going to bring the book back out. You saw what kind of was going on with it. This time I am going to press through, and if I get a 1, something happens, 2 through 7, something happens, and an 8 plus something happens. Of course, that does mean I am going to gain +1 systemic pressure. So we gain that +1 systemic pressure, which is bad news. We're going to roll a die. Oh, I got a 3. All right, let's see what it says. Now, lucky for us, at least I don't lose anything. I'm hopefully gain the fighting art. It says, your limbs depart your body. Your fingers and toes float loose into a void. Each digit experiences a piece of incomprehensible capacity. Your dismembered mind comprehends, but you cannot pull pieces back together. The experience ends. So again, I don't believe I learned the fighting art. If I'm wrong about that, please let me know in the comments below. We continue forward again, I believe, without learning that fighting art, which is very, very sad. Our next person is going to be, I think it's going to be the other person, Perrin. Perrin is going to go next. We'll roll up our dice and see what he gets. He got a 31. Oh, I don't have to know what that is first. I got to roll these 2 dice. We're going to roll these 2 dice and add them together. We got 9. So we're going to go through our deck again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's going to be this one right here. It's just going to be a random hunt event where the other 2, oh, they're at the bottom. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Oh, that makes me sad. Okay, so we're just going to roll on the hunt event table and see what we get. We'll roll them up, and we got a 68, which is right over there. It says familiar faces. If no survivor has died yet this campaign, ignore this event and roll again on the hunt event table before moving on the hunt board. All right, so I do have to do that because we haven't lost anybody yet. We'll roll again just right above the book here and see what we get. We got 67. That's pretty funny. The ground ahead is pot marked with pools filled with a gooey liquid. Saliva pools, huh? They bubble merrily and stink of digesting meat. All survivors move between them. They are overcome by waves of nausea. If any survivor has a sickle, they slice a few leaves from a nearby plant and everyone uses them to plug their nose and mask the smell. All survivors gain +1 understanding. That's not going to happen. Otherwise, each survivor rolls a d10. If the result is less than their survival, they continue on. Otherwise, they vomit into a nearby pool, suffering 1 event damage to their body. Before their eyes, the pool greedily dissolves their vomit. They gain +1 understanding. If any survivor has +3 understanding, they devise a way to use the pools. Each survivor may place 1 piece of gear in a pool, archive the gear, and gain the resources used to craft it, if any. That's totally interesting. All right, let's roll some dice and hope we get 2s or less. I think there's about to be a lot of damage to the bodies. We'll start up here and see how Elena does. She's going to take 1 damage to the body. Let's go here. He needs a, nope, he takes a damage. We'll go there. She got a, nope, takes a damage. And the last guy, well, we all took damage. That's fantastic. But we all get +1 understanding. Now, the only one I didn't roll for was the scout. I forgot I have to have the scout on the board. I believe that person rolls. Let's see how, nope, she also takes 1. Rand has reached 3 understanding, so he gets to gain his insight ability here during this particular hunt event. Also, he has now 3 understanding. I could dissolve a piece of his gear, but that's not going to happen. I think we obviously want to keep all our gear. Now, of course, if I had something I didn't care about, maybe I'll go for it, but we just bought all our stuff. We just made all that stuff. We're really excited about our stuff. He's going to be able to gain the abilities based on where he is in the particular game. He's during the hunt event, so he is going to have an epiphany. It says, you dream before you, toiling silently, a strange creature with an imprint of a human face sculpts stone faces into the ground. You met its concave gaze and wake, gaining the following ability and roll on the table below. He gains Explore when you investigate, roll, and add +2, and he also gets an 8+, which means he gets a permanent accuracy. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And with that, our characters will move up, and we're going to be taking on the Crimson Crocodile in the next video. This is going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to taking on this creature again. I only saw a glimpse of what this thing can do, and this time I hopefully will not butcher any of the head location cards or the like the 99 finger spine. Hopefully I'll get it all right. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you're enjoying the playthrough. If you are, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell symbol so you know when more Kingdom Death Monster, the Gambler's Chest Dream Keepers expansion campaign comes out. Also, please feel free to leave anything in the comments below. I would love to hear from everyone. Again, please tell me if you have any solutions to my my hunting problem here with all the cards being different colors, and anything else you saw in the video. I would love to hear from everyone. Also, if you're interested in supporting the channel, please feel free to check out my Patreon. The link to that is also in the description of this video. Those that have joined the Patreon are located here on the screen. Thank you so much for your patronage. It means the world to me. Now, going forward, some of the perks that the Patreons gain is they're able to see my playthrough videos usually a day or two ahead of time without commercial interruptions. Also, they're going to help us decide how this goes forward. So after we defeat the Crimson Crocodile, I may be asking some of them to help me on what they think I should try to get for our characters, or also what some of the names we should use in our playthrough. So please feel free to join the Patreon if you're interested in having a hand in how the game develops as we go forward. Also, I'm probably going to have them help me decide what kind of monsters we fight going forward too, which would be pretty awesome. If you're interested in more content on Meet Me at the Table, don't forget, usually about every week I try to play a game live with Colin and he joins me. It's a ton of fun. Also, I try to do a painting episode usually about every week or so where we can paint up maybe some of the monsters we're going to be fighting in this game, some of our survivors, or any other miniatures that we're going to be using in the games coming up in the future. Thanks again for watching Kingdom Death Monster, the Dream Keepers campaign. And if you're excited to see more, then I need you to meet me at the table.